Welcome back to Behind the Reel. Today we have a very special guest. I'm so excited. We go way, way, way back, but she's killing it right now in the TV film industry. So I want to welcome actress and poet Zsané J. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey guys.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. I've been looking forward to having this conversation and just reconnecting. Because you've been involved in so many different projects. I know you have a lot of stuff coming up now, but I would love for us to get started with you telling us about your transition, because I know that you initially wanted to be an engineer. So how did we go from engineer to actor?
You know what? That's a good question. So I went to school. I started off at Alabama A&M, and then I transferred to North Carolina A&T. I was trying to hit all the HBCUs.
Come on, HBCU circuit.
Yes. So, and I ended up graduating as a civil engineer, and I started working as a civil engineer in a few different states. Like I started off in Denver, then I went to like Delaware, then I was in Atlanta. And I just didn't like it, and I didn't fit in to the culture of engineering. I didn't want to be in a cubicle, and I also didn't want to like be outside all the time. So
That's
I
real.
right. And so I started like getting back into my poetry, which I did do throughout college, but then I got back into it. And then like I slowly like just kind of transitioned into performing. It kind of like, I don't know, I guess it kind of like chose me. It's not really, it wasn't on my radar.
So how did you prepare for that? Did you start going to acting classes? Did you decide to go back to school? How did you prepare for that transition?
I did start going to acting classes. I just like kind of Googled how to become an actress because I just felt like I felt more myself on stage. So I was like, you know what, I should do this. And so I kind of Googled like, how do people become actors? And then I found out that they like go back to college, which was a no for me because I'm not going back to school. I barely made it. I was in undergrad for like 6 years. Like I barely made it. I made it by the skin of my teeth. So I knew grad school was not going to be it for me. So I started taking classes, and then I ultimately got an agent when I was living in North Carolina.
Okay. I love that you said I was not going back to school. I had a conversation with Shannon from the Professional Pen about this.
Yes.
And it was so funny because she ended up going back to school. She has 3 degrees, which she's a better woman than me. I have 2, and I was like, I'm done. Okay. But she was like, Hollywood doesn't care about your degree. And I'm like, that's real. It's about the network. So I want to back up just a little bit before we start running off all of your accomplishments in on the acting side and talk about the poetry. Because one thing that stood out to me, and you did this a while ago, and I know it's still on your page, but you did a poem called Code Switch.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful. So can you just tell us a little bit about that poem and the inspiration behind it?
Well, that poem actually came out because so when I was starting as an actress and I needed to like trying to figure out like a day job. So like I was substitute teaching. Then I had got back into poetry. Like people were like bringing me in for their launches. Like Atlanta is like the queen of Black women entrepreneurship. So many people were having launches and launching their different entrepreneur endeavors, and I would be like an opener for that. And so Black women started like commissioning me to do poems to
Wow.
tell their stories for their launches. So that poem was actually commissioned by a woman named Jasmine who was launching her business that focuses on getting Black women into the workforce and equipping them to interview and have great resumes and stuff like that. And she kind of
Wow.
like told me a little bit of her journey, and it just really kind of struck a chord with me because it was the limited time that I did have in corporate America. It was very similar to that. And then also too, I have a mom who's been in corporate America all my life. Well, most of my life. She's been in corporate America, and I see her everyday struggles. And I mean, she's a director of HR now, but even as a director of HR, even as a head honcho, it's still all this micro aggression and all these really racist racist, activity that she has to constantly deal with. And so it was something that I felt like, that was a story that like definitely is worth telling.
Yeah, it was super powerful, especially when you're like, "Ooh, don't touch my hair," but you can touch it a little bit, and I'm like, that's like a black woman's plight because when I worked, excuse me, when I worked in corporate America briefly, at a car rental company, I won't name which one, but people can probably deduce which one. Um, they were so fascinated with my hair because I'm switching them out.
Right, right.
Today I might be Destiny, tomorrow I might be Savannah. Who knows?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it was just this obsession with, oh my God, I must touch it, and I'm like, you must
Yeah.
not.
And that's strange. Cause I'm like, don't nobody live their everyday life seeing something nice. Like even if I see a nice car, I'm not gonna go over and touch some stranger's car. So why
Right.
would I touch something as personal as the strands growing out of somebody's head? It's just weird.
It
It's just-
is. It is weird. I just think it's an obsession, which is
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
But people have weird obsessions. I don't know, but that's awesome. So I want to switch us a little bit. I didn't know that. With it, you're right about Atlanta being sort of that mecca for Black entrepreneurship. Is that where you're still located now in Atlanta?
Yep.
So I want to stay there for a minute because everybody I talked to so far lives in Los Angeles,
Oh
right?
wow.
And so there's that. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank now. But basically, there's this idea that to really be successful in television and film, you have to live in Los Angeles, right?
Hmm.
So how has that experience been for you, living in Atlanta and still being able to get booked, auditioning for gigs, and you say you had an agent. So what was that process too of getting an agent?
It was when I first got here, I got in, I mean, it kind of, I think Atlanta is a smaller pool, yes, but it kind of works the same as LA with like what you were saying of you just have to know somebody. That's really, you just have to go out of your way to be strategic and build relationships. So when I first got here, I got a relationship with an acting studio. And within 6 months, I was meeting with agents and stuff, and I had got referrals and stuff like that. It might be easier to get those things in Atlanta just because everything here is just sort of grassroots almost. It's just easier. It may be easier to get connected here, but ultimately it kind of works the same. It's a relationship business that we're in. But so I got an agent when I got here, and that was back in 2016. I had an agent by the end of the year, and then I stayed with that agent for like 2 years or so. And then I got another agent, and then me and her together for 2 years, and then me and her ended our relationship last year. So, but I mean, it was. I got referrals to both of those agents. Like one
Oh,
referral
wow.
came from an acting teacher, the first referral. The second referral came from an Atlanta casting director. So if you just like do good work and you stand out, people will gravitate towards you, and you're just like a decent human being. People will gravitate towards you, and people will. I mean, even like my LA friends. I just recently, I'm on a search right now for an agent, and I just recently hit up some of my LA friends for some referrals, and like they believe in me, and so they'll give you a referral. If you just do good work, you have a strong work ethic, and you're a decent human being. People,
Yeah. Hey, it's about that energy. It's
it
about the
is.
energy and not being a weirdo. I
Yes.
talked about that with Londe too, about when you
Mhm.
approach people and you're DMing people and asking people essentially for favors.
Mhm.
Um, all of that is strategic, and you can't be a weirdo.
You can't be. You can't. And you have to have a real Like I don't ever ask for anything from a person I don't really have an established relationship with. Like so I think it's strange when people like reach out to me on IG or somewhere, and I'm like, I don't even know you. I can't vouch for you, and I don't. I wouldn't put my name on that. But when you
Mm,
have good relationships with people, and you're genuine, like and genuine in your relationship, you're not making that relationship just to have connections, then people feel that.
definitely. And so it's about being symbiotic. Like you just said it. Being able to offer something as well, not just looking to build those connections for what you can get, what you can milk out of a person, especially in this industry. People can feel that. People can feel who's chasing clout or who wants to be near me, just they can, say that they had a picture with me or such and such.
Right.
So that's a good tip. My next question is going to be more so geared towards the specific roles that you've had. You had a post. This is part of my researching, not being weirdo, but you had a post that was very interesting, and it actually resonated with me a lot when you were talking about your first role in Greenleaf, co-starring in Greenleaf, and also talking about like your faith and how it sort of wavered after you got presented with those opportunities and that contrast versus the beginning of it. So can you go into detail? Because that's real. I think people are afraid to say that, but that's a real feeling. So I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it is real. And I think it's very like shocking at first, right? Because you take this big jump, you take this big jump. I quit my job and you think, oh, that's my faith walk. Right. I have faith walked it out. And then
Faith walked it out. I'm keeping that forever. I'm sorry. I'm keeping that forever. Go ahead. Faith walked it out. That's good.
Do that, and then you think it's over. You think that the fear will just be like, whatever, girl, I see you winning. And then you keep on, you continue your journey, and new fears start recreating themselves. And you're just like, wait, but I just did that big thing. Like, I should be above fear. No, but like, you're like human. So a lot of what ended up happening with me was like, I started getting like a lot of my fear resonated like in anxiety. As I was booking more roles and elevating my career, I started to have much more anxiety. And some of that, a good bit of that anxiety honestly has to do with expectations versus reality. You booked, I wanted to be a bi-coastal actor. And so I was like, oh, I need to be on this plane. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I get on that plane, I book a role, a recurring guest star in Good Trouble, which I absolutely loved my time on that show. I booked that role, and then my life isn't what I expected. Like, I expected, oh, I'm coast to coast, living the life. No, sis was lonely. I was alone. I was in LA where I didn't have any friends yet. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have my support system like I do in Atlanta. And then like it was my first show that wasn't it was my first show that was not necessarily that diverse. And I had never really been presented in those sorts of types of situations when it comes to like makeup and hair and like having a curvier body. It was just different things that never presented themselves as challenges in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And that created a lot of anxiety in me. And so that's really where like things kind of got tricky because I was letting my anxiety like rule me. And so then fears just kept creeping in because my anxiety had me wide open. So that's really what happened. So I really like during the pandemic, I realized that I had to get my anxiety under control because it was starting to like run my life and my career.
Girl, you're gonna have so many people watching this. Like, she just articulated what I've been feeling for like the last year or the last 2 years, because it's so brave of you to actually come out and say that. Because again, I think I felt that for sure. That feeling. And two, I think that's another conversation that sort of goes into imposter syndrome, which is something I also talked to Shannon about, that feeling of I don't belong here, or that feeling of now that I'm here, what the heck do I do now? Right? Like that expectation of I've gotten over this milestone, because we do set milestones for ourselves. Mm-hmm. But it's almost scarier once you're there to maintain it, like to preserve that, than trying to figure out how to get there in the first place.
Right. And then as an actor, and I think like as a writer too, and as probably anybody in this position, in this industry, because we're so project based, it's like once one project is done, it's like, where's your next one, boo? Mm-hmm. And it becomes this whole thing of like, how do I be a success? And then when I am a success, how do I maintain that level of success? How do I keep doing this over and over again?
Yeah. That's where the pressure lies. Yeah. The pressure lies in sustainability. So what are some tools that you developed that you would give as a tip to anybody else who's acting or just getting into acting and on the fence of, do I make that leap? What are some tools that you can suggest to overcome that?
Oh man, I mean that's hard. It's really hard because it really is spiritual. It's really
Mm-hmm.
what it is. You know, for me, it's like if I just have to have faith, and faith is seeing, faith is believing in something that's not seen, and that's the thing. Is like you know, so I talk to a lot of my actor friends and they always want to, oh, well, I don't want to leave this agent until I get these meetings, or I don't want to, okay, well, then you don't want to have faith because that's what faith is.
Mm.
So it really is like about like having to strengthen your faith and really just, you know, tune in to you feel to what you feel the vision on your heart, whatever the vision that was placed on your heart. That's really all it is. And it sucks because it's like there's no easy way around it. It's just like you gotta just do it and you have to just believe because you don't get what you want. You get what you believe. So do you
Mm.
believe that you're gonna make it? And if you are still like teetering with that, then maybe you need to work on whether you believe in yourself or not, whether you believe this is really what you're called to do. Because if you believe this is what you're called to do, you would also believe that your success is inevitable because this is what you're called to do.
You preaching the whole word. Preaching the whole word. She's also a minister, ladies and gentlemen. My word. Wow, that was powerful. Gosh, so many sound bites. Um, so there was another post too that also in that same arena that stood out to me too about saying, when you were ready to finally quit your job, and I mean civil engineering ain't no joke. Like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like that's an easy job. Like, oh, you go to school and major in business. Like,
Right.
no, engineering is a big deal,
It is.
especially for a woman of color to even get into engineering. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, you making a decision that no, I'm actually destined to go do this thing, and feeling like there was nobody that believed you can do it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you overcome that?
I think that honestly, I think that's just a personality trait in me. Is that I'm just very persistent. I'm just extremely persistent and I honestly don't care what nobody say. And that's how I've been since that's just that's the way my mom is. So that's probably the way she just raised me. And so but it still don't mean it don't hurt. Like it still
Right.
hurt feelings. Like I had a friend say when I told her, she was one of my close friends too at the time. She ain't no more. But I had a friend say like, "Oh, well, you ain't gonna be sleeping on my couch," and I mean, that hurt, like, because
The
it all
audacity.
right, the all freaking audacity, and now she in my DMs. Anyways, so
That's a word to the wise. That is a lesson.
that is
Go
it really
ahead.
is.
Don't get caught up
But
being that person.
exactly, but I really did like I feel like I didn't really forgive a lot of that nonsense until like about a year ago. It took a minute. But you have
Mm,
to realize that like people can only see you going as far as they can see themselves going. And that's just what this is. And if the vision was placed on your heart, it was placed on your heart. You're the only
right.
person that matters in this scenario. What you think is the only opinion that matters. And we're all doing the work to evolve our mindsets and release strongholds. So I don't know where you are in that journey, and I can't expect you to show up in a way that I deem as supportive. So it was kind of just like I had my feelings hurt. I lost a lot of friends. Um, I family I lost like connection and communication with family for at least about a year.
Mm,
And I just had to sit in it with just me and God, and like I had one other friend, but I mean he was always telling me, "Girl, you crazy." But but at least he was still my friend.
right.
But I had to just sit in it and just, really just spend time with God. That was really the only way I got through that, honestly.
And what's the process when those people come back? Because that's the thing. Like, we always hear the beginning stories of like, I lost a lot of friends, but these people usually come back after
Yeah.
they've seen the social media posts, they've seen your credits, they've looked at their IMDb, and now they're sliding back in the DM. So, like, what's the process on filtering through that situation?
Oh, I just leave it on red.
Oh,
That
there you go.
sometimes like if they say something like, "Oh, keep going, you're encouraging others," I'll hit like. I mean, that'll be that'll be it. I say thanks. That's it. I don't engage in stuff like that.
Yeah. You said something interesting though just a second ago about diversity that I wanted to come back to in hair and makeup and wardrobe on set. And that's something that I would love to get your perspective on being actually in it because
Mhm.
we've heard of like that happening with Gabrielle Union on America's Got Talent and that whole situation with her hair and it's sort of like a taboo thing. I feel like people in the industry like actors and people who are behind the scenes really know, especially of color, really know what's up, but it's
Mhm.
not really being talked about. So can you go a little deeper into that experience of like dealing with makeup artists or wardrobers or whoever who are not accustomed to working with curvier women or women of color when it comes to hair and makeup,
Mhm.
and what can you do about it?
That's a good question. So, well, I'll get to what you can do about it. But for me, I have been really, really blessed. Most of my projects are about activism. Most of my roles are about activism within the Black community. So most of my hair and makeup people are usually Black. So I've
Okay.
been very blessed to not really have to deal with that so much. Um, but I now when it comes to being plus size, I mean whether you Black or not, skinny people are on television. Okay, these skinny hoes are winning. They are
Period.
they they're out here winning on these TV shows. And so I haven't had anyone necessarily make me feel because I've heard some stories about this sort of thing. I haven't had anybody make me feel, outright insecure. But there are like those little things that you're kind of like, okay, where like I've been asked to bring from home some of my own pieces that are like basic, like jeans. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking about specialty items here. And that's not standard for actors to be, doing unless you have like, you have your own little what do you call it? Like the little smoothers.
Oh, like shapewear.
Shaper, yeah, yeah. Sometimes you
Hmm.
bring your own shaper because you know what works for you, your own intimate clothing like bras and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But like jeans, like come on, sis. Like, what are we doing here? So I have had those sorts of situations. The way I combat it, honestly, is I can't change who's on TV, who's getting cast for these roles. I'm usually the biggest girl. And if I look around at the cast, I'm usually the biggest girl.
Mm.
And I really did have to build like this sort of wherewithal to deal with that because it's hard being the biggest girl all the time. It's like, dang, man, for real. Like it's hard. So I had to kind of build that up. But also I come very prepared. Like I come to my fittings now, I come with my own jeans that I've worked with the tailor that have been custom fit for me. I come with my own
Hmm.
business clothes. I went and invested in a wardrobe that I can take to set with me.
Wow.
And I'm blessed to not have to use that, I don't really use it actually at all. Now that I think about it, it's kind of a waste of money. But I come prepared because you just
Hmm.
never know. And as an actor, you want to feel your most confident on screen. Like I can't be getting on there looking crazy. I
Yeah,
have to feel, and there have been times where I did not feel my most confident, and that's why now I come prepared.
that's
Also,
real.
also too, we have like major roles, like when we have bigger
Hmm.
roles, which I'm just now getting into that. You have to find, I guess, you kind of have to find the courage to kind of address stuff like that with the costume director. Like I'll put together a slideshow and say, this is how I see my character fit. This is where I'll offer up like where you can shop for me. Special like plus size places that I know will fit me well.
Okay.
But I stay suggesting that place. But I always like will slide when I slide out of the fitting. I'll be like, let me know if you need any help finding my clothes. I can let you know where to shop for me. And they're always like, oh yeah, tell me where to shop for you because they like, sis, we don't know what to do with you.
Help us help you.
Yes, help us
Yeah.
help you. And you just have a good attitude about it,
Hmm.
That's because that's what it is.
Girl, that just gave me so much anxiety. I'm like, and this is why I am behind the camera and not on the camera, and why I have so much respect for actors like you and the Octavia Spencers and the Queen Latifahs, and the
It's out here
Moniques,
killing it.
killing it. Who stand in their glory and their confidence as beautiful, curvy women of color, or just curvy women in general, not just women of color. what's my other girl? Melissa McCarthy. Am I
I
saying her name right?
love
Love
Melissa.
her. Love her.
Okay, I want to see that. I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, I love Melissa McCarthy. So I can't imagine what that's like behind the scenes. But going into new projects that you're doing, so I did see David Makes Man. So
Yes.
yeah, tell us about that. How that role came about.
It came about. It came through my agent last year during this. It was actually my first audition during the pandemic. I think it came in like June of last year, and it's just like it's an incredible role. The character's name is Sheila, and she's every Black woman is going to be able to see themselves in her. She does it all. Sis is an entrepreneur. She got her OnlyFans, and
I'm
she
on OnlyFans.
yeah, she got her OnlyFans. And she uses it to sell her CBD. She she's born and raised in I don't know if you're familiar with David Makes Me in the first season.
Mm-mm.
But okay, well, she's born and raised in the projects, and it's called the Ville. And she just is like, sis is everything.
I'm excited. When I saw that you were in it, and when I saw that you were in it, I made a point to go back and watch the first season so that I can
Yeah,
prepare for the second season.
you got to. The younger version of me is in the first season, so the
Okay.
second season is almost like it's still the same environment. So you can from the first season you'll gather like what's happening here, who these people are. But in the next season we're all grown because
Okay.
it's all kids last season.
I'm excited for it. I was excited too when I caught you on The Watchmen. I literally like paused it and I was like, "Is this?" And that's before I actually knew. And I was like, "I think that is." And I also saw you on was it For My Man? It was one of those shows like Fatal Attraction or
Oh
For My
yes.
Man.
Which one was I on? I think I was on. Maybe I was on Fatal Attraction.
Maybe it was. I love those shows, and I was just watching do 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 do, and then I said, "Wait a minute, I know this person," and
That
I'm
was
like, "Is
my
that
first.
Zsané
That's my first on camera role.
for
Was
real?"
in Fatal Attraction? Yes,
That
and
is so funny.
that was a good time. That was in Tennessee too. You know they do that in Tennessee.
I did not know that they do that in Tennessee.
They do all them shows there. They do it in Knoxville.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, when I saw that, I called my mom. I said, "Mom, you remember Zsané used to live down the street from us? She's in this show." She's like, "What?" Because she knows I love like any crime series, like For My Man, Fatal Attraction.
I don't see how people be watching those. Like I
What?
think y'all be binge watching. I be like,
Binge
I
watching
be so
it.
scared. I be so scared.
No, ma'am. I am watching it. All NCIS, CSI, Law and Order, Fatal Attraction.
So
I
you
like true crime.
you like procedurals and true crime.
I like procedural dramas and true crime. Yep, like they just had another one come out. What was it? Murder Among the Mormons or something just came out on Netflix. Loved it. Loved it.
That's crazy.
I know. But you know what? And transition when transitioning implies that I'm leaving my career in the music industry. I'm not leaving my career in the music industry, but I'm just adding a career as a screenwriter. So now that I'm doing it, I've been watching more shows because right now I'm working on my first feature film, which is a crime feature. So I'm like always watching these shows to look at angles, see how they're directed, seeing how they're shot, so it's more of like a study thing. But I've always, even before I wanted to be a screenwriter, I was watching crime. I don't know. I'm like, if I don't make it in the music industry, I'm going into forensic science.
So how do you okay, so with music and then with you screenwriting, do you also write music?
So I started writing music back in high school. Back in the day, I was writing music and poems. And really about 5 years ago, I started writing a book. I said I wanted to put out a book. At first, it was going to be a poetry book, but then it sort of turned into like a self-help book. And I released it 2 years ago. So when I'm back in Tennessee now, but the year 2019, August, I moved to LA. And when I got to LA, I started meeting screenwriters. Like I'd never met a screenwriter before. So I just started meeting people who were writing and networking. And I was like, I think I can write a pilot. Like, so I just hit the ground running, started taking classes. like screenwriting courses online
Mm.
that were free, networking,
Did you
sending
focus
my
on
scripts.
like TV writing when you took your classes, or did you do like
Hmm.
screenwrite like features?
At first it was TV pilots. I was like, I want to write for television. I did take one short film class that was free with NYU, with
Oh
their
wow.
film school.
Hmm.
And so that was awesome. It was like a 10-week course or something like that, and it was completely free. You can go at your own pace. So that was like the only film class, but everything was like focused on writing for television.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so freaking cool. I actually be consulting with Shannon on this pilot.
Okay. Yeah,
Like,
I'm definitely gonna use her to go over this pilot.
oh my gosh, she's so good.
She knows what
So
she's talking about.
she knows exactly what she's talking about, and she doesn't. Because I've worked with a couple of consultants. She
Mm,
doesn't. I like the fact that she doesn't sugarcoat anything, and that it's not like that whole, oh well, let me tell you what's good first, because I only want to know what's bad. I don't
yeah.
really care what. I don't need you to sing my praises. I need you to critique. That's what I want to pay for. Critique.
Hmm. I love that about her. She's a sharpshooter. She's like, I'm not gonna waste your time, your money, and I'm not gonna waste my time. This is what you need to do if you want to make this a good script. Now go do this and be married.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and it feels so good, and like that makes it even better because it feels so good already investing in a black woman. So it just feels
Yes.
so better that she's like so good.
Hmm. And that's the whole purpose too of wanting to even have these conversations, because it was just a random thought of mine. I'm like, I didn't meet my first black screenwriter until I was 29. I'll be 30 this year. That's a problem,
Right.
because that means that I was never exposed to this. And when I
Hmm.
started thinking about how many actors do I know, like I personally know, it was you and it was friends that I made in LA. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. So I'm like, we have to start having conversations with people who are in this industry who not only work in front of the camera, but behind the camera. So like, are the people younger than us know, like, hey, here are jobs that are available to people of color. Like, and even if you don't know that that's what you want to do until later in your life, there's still a place for you.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, we really do have to like cultivate that sense of community so that we're more like accessible. And so, and you're playing a huge part in that and doing this YouTube series. Like, I'm always on YouTube. Like, I literally am always on
Same.
YouTube. So, like, to be able to see somebody like sitting there having a conversation like this, an actress and a writer, like, oh, and black, I don't see that.
Right. Period. Or if you do, they're not accessible because they've been doing it for so many years,
Right.
and they're Emmy Award winning or Tony, not, they're plus plus plus, which is great. But it's like we need to be able to talk to people too, even at the level that we're at too, because we're gonna get there. But even at the level that we're at now is so important too, because it shows a realistic approach. Like I feel like everybody's on Instagram, flexing, and that's cool. But
Mm-hmm.
also people just gotta know where it starts.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you're not alone when you're having that anxiety and that feeling of like, I just quit my job. Like I
Right.
really just quit my job.
Like I really just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that is so cool. I'm so like that is so because you were like, weren't you like a quarter finalist or a something in a what competition was it?
Yeah, it was the final draft. It was the final draft big break screenwriting competition.
That's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Thank you. I didn't even think about it like that. Honestly, it was just the one I could afford on Film Freeway. It was like the cheapest one, just keeping it 100, because all of them have like,
They have to.
high cost. Yeah, high cost. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bet on me and see. And it was the first TV sample I had, the first pilot I wrote, the only pilot, honestly, that I wrote. I have more now, but at the time it was the only one I had, and I'm like, all right. So I sent it off, and I didn't think, I honestly forgot about it. Legitimately forgot that I had even applied for this because it took so long for them to
Mm,
email me back. So when I got the email, I just assumed that we regret to inform you. I was looking for that. And it
mm.
was like, oh, we've passed you to the next round. And I was like, okay, is there money involved? Do I
It's
get,
so
do I
funny.
get my fee back?
They still give y'all feedback. Like if you
At least.
that's right, the bare minimum. Give me my fee. I'm not asking for a lot.
Right?
Asking for the entry. But you know what? Like the barrier this is something that's been on my heart a lot lately. And the barrier of entry into these professions is profound. Like when I have discussions with young actors or their parents about wanting to be an actor, like I feel so bad saying like this is expensive. This is a really expensive. Like I spend endless amounts of money investing in my
Mm-hmm.
career, whether it's classes, coaching, materials, like whatever it is. Like
Even SAG, the membership fee for SAG, people don't know, like, that's expensive.
and I low key ain't finished paying.
That's
So
real. They
it's
need to give payment plans.
I was on a payment plan, but what happens is if you don't make the payment on the payment plan, you get kicked out of the payment plan. But the payment plan was like,
It
I mean,
wasn't a real payment plan.
it was like 400 or 500 a month, and I was like,
Mm-mm.
that's a lot to me. That's not a real payment. If you talking more than 200, that's not a real payment plan.
They
That's
coming at you like Sally Mae. Wait a minute.
right,
We don't have the coins yet. SAG, relax.
exactly. But it's like to work it, and I didn't really have to. I was flying under the radar of SAG for a minute because Georgia's a right to work state, so we don't have to be SAG here.
Mm.
But then my little bi-coastal dreams, as soon as I started working on Good Trouble, SAG was like, no, sis, you can't work another episode unless you go SAG. And the initiation fee is $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, $3,000. Like, and so I feel like I always want to genuinely encourage people to pursue their dreams. But there's a barrier of entry of like, which is why I believe that there's a disproportionate amount of diverse people in these because we don't. I mean, trust funds. I had never met nobody with a trust fund until I went to LA, and I was
Still
doing
have never met anyone with a trust fund.
Oh, you still have okay, girl. It was a lot of people in LA I ran into that had trust funds, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "What? Like a trust fund? But like
Mm-hmm.
you have to have money to do this, and that sucks because I mean, what other career is like that? You know, like yeah, you got to pay for college, but you always get student loans. You know, but this is like, no, where's your money? Is the first question.
Up front. Up front.
Like,
Yeah.
where is your money? And so it does keep you in this cycle of like day jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm grinding, I'm sleeping in my car, I'm doing all this stuff. But when you're doing all of that, you don't always have the capacity to bring the amount of energy that you need to bring in order to book the role.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crazy.
You hit the nail on the head on that one. And that's something that's always been a point of contention for me for the entertainment industry in general. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I look around, it's not just like that in film and television. It's very much so like that in music, except in music, it's
Mm-hmm.
more, you don't necessarily have to pay, and you don't have to pay anything up front to work in the music. At least you shouldn't be paying anything up front to work in the music industry. At least not if you don't want to be a recording artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little different. But to work like on the label side or like the music publishing side, that doesn't exist. However, it is very much so a who do you know situation times 15. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, I won't disclose the name of the company I was working for, but like an internship became available, and this is actually after I left. But I had gotten a friend on there before I left, and she was telling me about it. That a new internship position became open. She recommended one of her friends who had the credentials, but the person who actually got the internship was the son of the VP's friend. And the son made it very plain that he didn't even want to work in the music industry, but his father was making him put this internship on his resume just
Mm-hmm.
because he needed an internship. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like those things too that are working against specifically people of color, because how do you compete with that? How
How
do
you
you
can
compete?
nepotism, you can't compete.
No.
Like there's just not, and because the progress we've made is always like pushback. If
Mm-hmm.
it's like the Tulsa massacre, everything that we do, it's like we get knocked down a block every
Mm-hmm.
time we achieve and make it to the next level. It's unfair. It's
It
very
is.
unfair.
It is, which is why it's even more beautiful and grand when we win anyway. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why um they hate us. I don't know a more plain way to say it. Because imagine putting roadblocks in front of somebody
Mm-hmm.
at every milestone, and them, it might take a little longer, but they defeat those roadblocks
Mm-hmm.
and still end up crossing the finish line. And if you were the person that was there sabotaging them, imagine how pissed off you would be that your sabotage didn't work.
Right.
And I equate that to our industry. It's like I feel like there is a disproportionate amount of people of color, of women in general, um, and there's just a lack of diversity all the way around, and it is because of access and resources. Like we don't have $3,000 for an actor or actress who is just starting out, who quit their 9 to 5 job to join this union that they have to join, quote unquote, to be able to work
Right.
the jobs that will then pay
Right.
them enough to not have that 9 to 5. It's like the math don't be mathing for me. It does not make
It's not.
sense.
It's not, because more than likely your first job as an actor is a co-star one day, which means you're making, as a co-star you make maybe like $1,070. So
Mm,
how do I make that into 3,000?
mm-hmm.
It's not adding up. How do I stretch that into three
Yeah.
thousand dollars? Doesn't make sense.
On top of the other bills that you're already responsible for,
Exactly. Like I'm
especially if you live in Los Angeles. I mean, do
right.
people know how expensive Los Angeles really is?
Exactly. It's so expensive.
That's
I'm
why I
not.
came back.
Oh, I know. I know that's right.
Um, but I love this conversation. Oh my God, it's been a much needed conversation. Just talking about the industry and your journey. I always like to ask this sort of towards the end of the interview. What are some lessons that you have learned that you can give to the next generation of like, maybe you should think about this if they want to go into the industry?
Mm. Okay. Well, I would say to be vigilant about being in alignment. Like I say that because I'm always like having to constantly realign myself with my vision. Like say you
Mm,
want to be a creator, like it's a Ray. But then you get into your act, say you start off acting, or you start off writing, whatever lane you decide to start in. You start in that and that's going good, you having some success and all this other stuff. Um Remember that that is a limited version of your dream. So you have to now start to figure out, okay, well, how can I connect the dots? I've been writing this whole time. I've been working on these shows. But what I want to be is a show creator. Like, so you have to like constantly realign yourself with your vision, because sometimes you get caught up in the hype of what's happening, around you. You get caught up in booking roles. You get caught up in, writing for these Shonda Rhimes or whatever you're doing. Make sure that you remember the vision, because you're never going to feel right at the end of the night. Like you're never going to feel whole in that experience unless you remember to realign yourself and be intentional with every single thing that you do, with every role you take, with every project that you write for. Be intentional. Is this going to get me to the next level of whatever goal it is that I'm reaching? I know that a lot of people, like, I'm super duper goal oriented. And so I believe in like having one or two goals a quarter, every quarter.
mm,
And then every single step like that I want to take in my career, I'll write down, okay, say I want to book a lead role. I'll write down I want to book a lead role this quarter. Okay, cool. I just got this audition. Does this audition align with that? Nope. I reject the audition. Everything has to be strategic and everything has to make sense for what I want. Because remember, this is the career that, I mean, you don't go into a creative career unless it's something that you want. So your agent, your mama, your manager, whatever they're saying, that's cute, and you can lean on them for guidance, but always go back to yourself and that calling that was placed in your
told y'all she was a minister.
heart.
Told y'all she was a preacher. Yeah, that was period. That's all I gotta say. There's nothing to even add on top of that. Be intentional. That's a word all in itself. I feel like, yeah, be intentional. Again, thank you. I'm just ingesting all of that. It was so good. I'm just like, I think I needed to hear that for myself. Um, but thank you so much for your time, for your words of wisdom. Definitely look forward to seeing you in season 2 of David Makes Man, and definitely
Yes.
keeping up with you and all of your future endeavors. Wishing you the best of luck, and for us to definitely stay connected, especially we're down the street from each other now.
Yes, we are. How far?
But with Zsané, I'll definitely link her IG info in the description box. Do not be a weirdo and be sliding up in her DMs all weirdly, please. She don't have time for all of that. She's working, okay? But you can definitely connect with her there. As always, you can connect with me too. My info will also be in the description box, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Zsané.